Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning,
Morning,
sir.
sir.
Good morning, sir.
To give you a recap of what we were discussing in the previous class, we were discussing the story The Face on the Wall by E.V. Lucas. The story in brief is that the narrator, the little man who is mentioned as the little man in the story, he is the narrator of the story. So he tells that he had found the mark of a face of a person on his bedroom wall. This mark was formed by moisture, but he felt that this face might really exist somewhere. That is, a person with such a face might exist somewhere. He goes in such a search of this person. He searches many places, he does not find them, but still he does not abandon the search. He continues the search until at last he sees him going in a taxi. So he follows the man with the face on the wall. He is unable to reach him by chasing on the taxi. He is also unable to get hold of him at the railway station, train, and left. So he followed him. He reached the port where he is going to sail to France. He is able to talk to him before he boards the ship. So the narrator gets into the ship. He takes a ticket to France, to Boulogne. That is the place where the ship is going. That is referred to in the text as the place in France is referred to as Boulogne. So the narrator decides to go to Boulogne. Though he had not much money with him, he just had enough money for the single fare to Boulogne. He doesn't know how to come back. So in the ship, he manages to talk to the man with the face on the wall. That is where we stopped. So we continue from there. For the card, so we already mentioned that about card here means a visiting card or a business card. He asked for the business card or visiting card. And the man with the face on the wall, he gave him the visiting card. He did not know this person, but still he did not want to get into trouble by not honoring him. So he just gave him the visiting card and went his way. So what did the narrator do? He went to a lonely corner in the ship and started reading the card. So that is where we have to what is written.
వాయిస్ కట్ అవ్వండి సార్.
Okay. I think this is a network problem. Oh, I could use another system. Is this better now? Is this okay now?
എക്കോ കേക്കുന്നുണ്ട്.
Now? How is it now?
ഇപ്പൊ കുഴപ്പമില്ല സർ. ഇപ്പൊ കുഴപ്പമില്ല.
Okay. Okay. Gargi Unikrishnan, please read. Gargi. Gargi ഉണ്ടോ ഗാർഗി? അനാമിക. അനാമിക മണികണ്ഠൻ.
Yes, sir. Holding the card tight in my hand, I hurried to a lonely corner of the ship and read it. My eyes grew dim, my head reeled, for on it were the words Mr. Ormond Wall with an address at Pittsburgh. USA, I remember no more until I found myself in a hospital at
ബോളോൺ.
Bono, where I lay in a broken condition for some weeks, and only a month ago did I return.
Thank you, Anamika. So he takes the card from the man with the face on the wall. He hurries to a lonely corner of the ship and reads the card. And while reading the card, his eyes grew dim and his head reeled. Reeling here is described as losing balance. So when your head reels, it is actually you are becoming unconscious because he is having some shock when he reads what is written there. So that is why he is unable to see properly also after that. So what is there on the card which is causing shock to him? It is the name of the person that is causing so much shock to him. So what is special about that name of the person? His name is Ormond Wall with an address at Pittsburgh, USA. So can you tell me what is special about this name? Why is this name special? Exactly, yes. Thank you, Danya, for that. It is the name of the street. If you remember the beginning of the story, look at this beginning of the story here. Yes, Rajalakshmi. That is exactly the reason he is shocked. See here, when he begins the story, a year or two ago, I was in rooms in an old house in Great Ormond Street. So the street name and also the place where the face is projected, that is wall. So all these things are there in his name. So that is why the narrator is shocked. Yes, Dhanya Rajalakshmi Shrishma. That is right. Yes, Aishwarya. So this is the reason he is shocked, because the name of that person bears the name of the street in which the narrator lives, and the second part of his name bears the name of the area where his facial features are projected. So this is the reason he is shocked. And this man is not from England, he is from USA. It is a different continent separated by two oceans, big oceans like the Pacific and the Atlantic. So there is no way in which somebody from there can have his features here in a house in London. And there is a very clear relationship with his name and the place where these face features are projected. So this is the reason the author became shocked and he became unconscious. That is referred to here. He says, so what does he say? His head reeled, and what was written there? It was an address in USA. And what happened to him? He became unconscious after this incident. After reading this, and he was put in a hospital. The ship authorities took him to a hospital because the passenger was unconscious. So he had to remain at Bologna for a long time. He was in a broken condition. Broken condition means he was in a coma for some weeks, and only a month ago did I return. So now he has reached the point of the story where he has reached at a month before. That is until the story is narrated this evening, and he is talking about a month ago. If you remember him telling the story, he had said that the story had completed itself only this afternoon. Look at where he begins the story. Here, while let us see the beginning part of the story. I will project that onto the screen. Look at that. He says that I could tell you an occurrence which happened to me personally and which strangely enough completed itself only this afternoon. So, a very recent experience, but which began 1 or 2 years ago. Okay, so it is an experience of very long duration that he is talking about. So he began with that experience, and now he has reached 1 month before. Okay, 1 month before the experience ended. So that is where we have now reached, which means that we are almost reaching the end of the story. So he has come back from Bologna just before a month. Okay, just before a month from his narration. So only a month ago he returned from Bologna from the hospital. And after telling all these things, he was silent. Who is the he here? Exactly, the narrator himself, that is the little man. Thank you, Rajalakshmi. So he is silent. Why is he silent? He is observing the effect of his story upon the audience. Okay, after telling every major part, after telling every major part, he remains silent and observes the audience to see what effect his story has had upon the audience. So that is why he is silent for some time. Then these people are very eagerly waiting for. So when you are silent, the eagerness of the listeners will increase. Their interest to know more about the story will increase. So that is why they are looking at him. The listeners, they are looking at him, and also at each other, and waited for what? They are waiting for the rest of the story to be narrated by the narrator. So they are all eagerly waiting. Okay, this paragraph, the next paragraph tells about how the narrator tries to find out who this person is. He wants to know who is this person uh, who has uh, his facial features in his own residence, in the narrator's residence. So he wants to find out who this is, and for that purpose, he tries to find out more details about this person. Okay. Gargi, can you read Gargi English? Christina.
Yes, sir. Hello?
Yeah, you can read that.
I went back. He started once again after a moment or so to Great Ormond Street and set to work to find out all I could about this American. I wrote to Petersburg. I wrote to American editors. I made friends with Americans in London, but all that I could find out was that he was a millionaire with English parents who had resigned in London.
Thank you, Christina. I went back. So he is continuing, the narrator is continuing. He goes back, he went back to Great Ormond Street, that is his residence. He went back to England. From Bologna, he goes back and started trying to find out who is this American, whose features he finds in his house. So he wrote to different places. Pittsburgh is also a place in US. He wrote to American editors. He made friends with people in America, from America in London. But all that he could understand that he was a millionaire. Who is a millionaire? A millionaire is a very rich man, Kodishwaran. So that is the only thing that he understood, that he is a millionaire with English parents. English parents with parents from England. So the parents had this millionaire's parents had once resided in London. Other than that, he doesn't have any connection with England. He is purely an American millionaire. So very rich person from USA. And his features are getting projected in this London. So though he tried to gather some information about this person, the only thing he was able to understand that he was a millionaire. So this is very strange, because if he was a person who had lived in this house or something, then say that maybe he had drawn this, but uh, he had never been to London. This man has never come to London. He is a millionaire from USA. So this is very strange that a person from USA's face features are getting projected in a house in London, and that too naturally, without anybody drawing it, without anybody making a portrait. His features are occurring naturally in a house. So there is no scientific or logical explanation for this. And in the next, we come to the climax of the story. Something happens to the space on the wall, that is the image on the wall that the narrator has, and that causes a lot of shock to him. So he has just recovered from the shock of reading the visiting card. Now he is in for another shock, that of uh, uh, seeing something happening to the uh, face on the wall. That is the next paragraph. Sri Lakshmi P.N.
Yes, sir.
Sri Lakshmi P.N. Yes.
Yes. And the time went on until yesterday morning. I had gone to usually tired and slept till late. When I woke, the room was bright with sunlight, as I always do. I looked at once at the wall on which the face is to be seen. I rubbed my eyes and sprang up. It was only faintly visible. Last night it had been clear as ever. Almost I could hear it speak. And now it was a ghost of itself.
Thank you, Sri Lakshmi. So now we are reaching almost the end of the story, because he says yesterday morning. Okay, yesterday morning means the previous day. So the story is being narrated this evening, and he is reached to the where yesterday morning. And when does the story end? The day he is narrating the story, that afternoon only it ends. So he is talking about almost the end of the story now. So what happened on the previous day he is describing? He had slept late. And when he wakes up, so every day when he wakes up, he looks at the face on the wall. But the previous day when he woke up and he looked at the wall, it was only dimly visible. Faintly visible means not clear. So he says that it was only faintly visible. Usually it is very clear. The face on the wall, we have already mentioned that when every mark on the wall keeps changing, the face on the wall remains the same, it does not change. So he is surprised because that morning when he wakes up and looks at the face, it is only faintly visible, means it is not clear, and therefore he sprang up. Sprang up means it is the uh, past tense of spring up. To spring up means to jump up. Okay, so he jumped up. When do you jump up? When you are shocked, do you jump up? So he jumped up because of shock of seeing that something has happened to the face. It is not natural for him, because all these years, for the past 2 years, the face has been there on the wall. When all the other marks in the wall changed, this one never changed. So therefore he is shocked that uh, the wall has changed. I mean, the face on the wall has changed. Even the previous night he had observed it. So because every day he observes the face, it was very clear on the previous day. Now it is almost like a ghost, means there is no clarity on the face. So before we move on into the story, can you guess what could have happened? Why is this face suddenly become unclear? Just a guess. Can anyone just make a wild guess of what could have happened to the face? Some wild guess. What happened to the face? Why is the face suddenly dim? It is not clear. It was very clear yesterday, but why is it suddenly dim? This is a mystery story, so you can make some mysterious reasons also for that. Yes, Rajlakshmi, that is a very good guess, and it is almost true also. Yes, he is going to vanish from the world. So there is some relationship. There is some relationship between this face on the wall and the man with the face on the wall. The man with the face on the wall, we have already identified him. His name is Ormond Wall, the millionaire from USA. So there is some relationship. എന്തോ ഒരു ബന്ധമുണ്ട് ഈ ചുമരിൽ വന്നിട്ടുള്ള ഈ മനുഷ്യൻ്റെ മുഖവും ആ യഥാർത്ഥ മനുഷ്യനുമായിട്ട് എന്തോ ഒരു ബന്ധം. There is some relationship between this face that has emerged on the wall and the real person who lives in USA. So that is why when he sees that this face, something has happened to this face, he is shocked because maybe something has happened to the man with the face on the wall. So yes, as you have rightly said, something has happened to him, and that is what is described here in this paragraph. Aishwarya Satyan, please read.
Sir, I got
Yes.
up confused and sad and went out. The early editions of the paper were already out. I saw the headline American Millionaire's Motor Accident. I bought it and read Mr. Ormond Wall, the Pittsburgh millionaire and party, motoring in Italy, were hit by a wagon and the car overturned. Mr. Wall's condition was critical.
Thank you, Aishwarya. So this man, he was very much disappointed. So he goes out to get that morning's newspaper because those days they didn't have such mobile phones and all these modern facilities that we today have. So he goes out to get the newspapers, and when he reads the newspaper, he reads the headline. The major news of that day, it says about the American millionaire's road accident. So it says that in an accident, in a car accident, his car had met with an accident. It was hit by a wagon. Wagon is nothing but a truck. So, and he was seriously injured because of the accident. And that is what is meant by critical. His condition was critical, means serious. That is why we have critical care unit in hospitals, ICUs, intensive care unit, or CCUs, critical care units. Critical means serious. Somebody whose health is in a very serious condition is said to be critical. So it was a very major accident, and because of the accident, his condition is serious. So that is why this face has become dim. So something happens to the man, this face is affected. So till then he was very healthy, very strong. So the face was also very clear. Now he has met with an accident. His health is very bad. Therefore, the face has become dim. And no, there is nobody to come there and make the face dim. You should remember that this man is in USA and this face is in London. Two different continents separated by vast oceans. So there is no way in which somebody can come and make some change to the face. So this is all very mysterious. How does this happen? So that is why this can be called as a mystery story. Okay, so he understands that this man has met with an accident. So he is very sad. He is very disappointed that the man with the face on the wall has met with an accident. So what does he do? He, after reading the newspaper, he goes back to his room and he appears to be very much disappointed. Okay. The next paragraph, Neeraja KK.
I went back to my room and sat on the bed looking face on the wall, and even I looked. Suddenly, the completely disappeared. Later, I found that Mr. Ward died on these injuries at what I take it to be that.
Thank you, Neeraja. So he goes back to his room. The narrator goes back to his room. He sits on the bed and he is looking at this wall, which is very dim. The face on the wall, which has become very dim. So he is looking at this face. And as he is looking at the face, it completely disappears. Even as he is looking, just as he is looking, the face disappears as if some movie image disappears. When you go to a theater, you see the white screen, and when the projector sends images, you can see the images on the screen. And when the projector is switched off, it is returning to a white screen. So like that, this image on the wall now completely disappears, even as he is looking. So it is proof that nobody has come to wipe off that face. വേറെ ആരും വന്ന് മായ്ച്ചു കളഞ്ഞതല്ല, നോക്കിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുമ്പോൾ തന്നെ ഫേസ് മാഞ്ഞു. So now what could have happened? Now it is an easy guess. When he met with an accident, his condition was serious. The face became dim. So now, when the face has completely disappeared, what could have happened to that man with the face on the wall? That should be an easy guess to anyone. That's right, Aishwarya. He is dead. So yes, Raj Lakshmi, that's right. So he dies. So that is mentioned in that last paragraph. Later, I found that Mr. Wall died of his injuries. So it must be almost at that same time. That's why he says, I take it to be at that very moment. Look at this. Again, he was silent. So every time he tells a major portion of the story, what does he do? He remains silent for some time. What does it do? Yes, thank you for those responses, Krishna, Raj, Lakshmi, and Aishwarya. So the narrator becomes silent. What is the effect of his becoming silent? When he becomes silent, the anxiety of the audience, the listeners, is increased. They want to know what happens. Why does this happen? So he is observing when he becomes silent. He is observing the effect of his story upon the listeners. So the effect is very good because we will also appreciate. You must also have been most uh, impressed by the story, isn't it? Till now, we have listened to the story and we are all very much impressed by the story. Like we were all very much impressed by the story. The listeners to the little man, they are also very much excited. They were also very much interested. They are also very much impressed by the story. So what do they say? They say most remarkable, means most wonderful, most extraordinary, and so forth. So they are, so when you use most, it is the superlative form. It's highest form of appreciation. So most extraordinary, most remarkable. The listeners are actually expressing their appreciation for the story of the little man. He says it is not a story, it is an experience. So they are showing his appreciation for the very strange experience that the narrator says. And when they appreciate him, the narrator tells us now the story is complete. There is nothing more to the story because now the man with the face on the wall has died. And when the man has died, the face has also disappeared. So there is some strange connection between the man and the face, the features of the face that are seen on the wall. Some relation is there. Okay, now the narrator tells some more things about the story. The story is now complete. കഥയിൽ ഇനിയും അധികം ഒന്നും പറയാനില്ല, കഥ കഴിഞ്ഞു, കഥ തീർന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞു. But the narrator is trying to tell some more things about the story to make the story more effective to the listeners. To make the story, he's giving some explanation to the story. Like I told you about the honor uncle who told me the story of the man who died in the air crash, who came back to his office. After dying, he came back to the office. So like that, and he gave an explanation that it must be the soul of the man who came back to the place who was most attached to. Like that, this narrator is also giving some more explanation about the story in this paragraph. Let us see what he says. Ardra, please read that.
Yes, sir. Yes, said the stranger, there are three extraordinary, the most remarkable things about my story. One is that it should be possible for a patch on the wall of a house in London not only to from the features of a gentleman in America, but also to have a close association with his life. Science will not to be able to explain that yet. Another one is that the gentleman's name should bear any relation to the spot on which his features were being so curiously reproduced by some unknown agency. It is not so.
Good, thank you, Ardra. So he says, the narrator says, so he is again referred to as the stranger, because in the beginning itself, again also he was also referred to as a stranger. Let us go back to the beginning to remember how he was referred to as a stranger. That is, when the story began, it is narrated that it in Dabney's last evening, among the strangers, this is the beginning of the story. Among the strangers to me was a little man with an anxious face. So it is this little man who is the stranger in the group, and he has come to narrate the story. A little man, stranger, narrator, they are all the same person. So that is this. So stranger എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ വേറെ ആരുമല്ല, it is the little man, that is the narrator. So he says that there are three extraordinary things. So means strange. So there are three extraordinary things. There are three strange things about the story. Is that so? This is the first thing that he says. A patch in London to form the features of a man from the United States. ലണ്ടനിലുള്ള ഒരു വീട്ടിലെ മാർക്ക് അതിന് അമേരിക്കയിലുള്ള ഒരാളുടെ രൂപവുമായിട്ട് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ മുഖവുമായിട്ട് സാമ്യമുണ്ടാവുക. Okay, so that is the first extraordinary thing, that the face of a man in US involved in a London house. Not only that, and that should have some close relationship with his life. Features London features all the features London. So that is the most strange thing that he says. And not only that, ചിലപ്പോൾ ചില ആളുകളുടെയൊക്കെ രൂപം നമുക്ക് ചിലപ്പോൾ നമ്മുടെ ചുമലൊക്കെ കാണും, പക്ഷെ അതിന് ഒരാളുടെ ജീവിതവുമായിട്ട് ചിലപ്പോൾ ഡയറക്റ്റ് റിലേഷൻ ഒന്നും ഉണ്ടാവില്ല. പക്ഷേ ഇവിടെ ഈ കഥയിൽ എങ്ങനെയാന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ, അമേരിക്കയിലുള്ള ഒരാളുടെ രൂപം ലണ്ടനിലുള്ള ഒരു വീട്ടിൽ വരുന്നു എന്ന് മാത്രമല്ല, ആ രൂപത്തിന് ഈ യഥാർത്ഥ മനുഷ്യനുമായിട്ട് ഒരു അഭേദ്യമായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ബന്ധവും ഉണ്ടാവും. That is, there is some relationship between the life of this person in United States and the image of this person's face which has appeared in the house in London. So that is the first extraordinary thing. So he says it will not be able to, science cannot explain this. There is no explanation. You cannot explain it using any logic. There is no logic to explain this. So that is the first extraordinary thing. The second extraordinary thing is that the name of the person, നിങ്ങളൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞത് തന്നെയാണ്, നമ്മൾ ഷോക്ക് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ പറഞ്ഞതാണ്, the name of the person. That is the second extraordinary thing. The name of the person has a relationship to the name where his features are getting projected. Okay, so that is the next extraordinary thing, that the name of the person has some relationship with the name where the features are getting projected. What is his name? His name is Mr. Ormond Wall. And where is it projected? His face is projected in Great Ormond Street on a bedroom wall. So the street's name Ormond is there. The wall is also there in his name. So that is the next extraordinary thing. So after hearing this, the audience will be even more impressed, because this person is also giving a detailed commentary on his story. He is giving a detailed explanation on his story, because of which the impression on the audience will be much bigger and larger. So what happens when you hear such a story? നമ്മളാണെങ്കിലും ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു കഥ ആരെങ്കിലും വന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ, what will happen? Everybody's interest will be heightened. Everybody's interest will, suppose you are discussing some ghost story and it is very impressive. So what will happen? Everybody will come up with some such new stories which creates a lot of interest in the audience. So that is what has happened here also, that there is a great deal of interest, a lot of interest that is generated among the audience. So that is described here in the next paragraph, because there is an increase in excitement about mysterious ആയിട്ടുള്ള വളരെ എഫക്റ്റീവ് ആയിട്ടുള്ളൊരു കഥ കേട്ടാൽ നമ്മളെല്ലാവരും പിന്നെ മിസ്റ്ററീസിനെ കുറിച്ചായിരിക്കും പിന്നെ ചർച്ച ചെയ്യുന്നത്. So that is what happens here. So that is what is described in the next paragraph. I request Swati K to read it. Number 48, yes.
We agreed with him, and our original discussion on supernatural occurrence set in again with increased excitement, during which the narrator of the amazing experience rose up and good night. Just as he was at the door, one of the company recalled us to the case of the our excited debate by asking him before the left what the considered in third most exciting things in condition with is deeply interesting story. You said three things you know. Yes, said he.
Thank you, Swati. So after telling all these things, the narrator slowly is going back. So he says, the discussion set in again with increased excitement. There is a lot of excitement among the listeners after listening to the story. And during that time, what does the narrator do? He rose up and said good night. So he is going away. Rose up means he got up. Rose is the past tense of rise. എഴുന്നേൽക്കുക എന്നുള്ള അർത്ഥത്തിലുള്ളതാണ് റൈസ്. He rose up means he got up to say goodbye. He says goodbye and leaves the house of Mr. Dabney. That is where they are all assembled in. So from there, the narrator gets up and leaves. And as he is leaving, one among the listeners suddenly remembers that the narrator had said that there are three extraordinary things story. So if you remember, he had said that there are three extraordinary things. So he had said only two extraordinary things. Which are the two extraordinary things that he narrated? One is that the features of a man in USA should be projected in a house in London, and there should be some relationship between the life of this person and this image. That is the first extraordinary thing. The second extraordinary thing is that the name of the person has some relationship with the name of the place where his features are projected. That is the second extraordinary thing. So now the problem is, the narrator had said that there are three extraordinary things. So they are all very interested to know what is the third extraordinary thing. So that is what they are all asking for. So they are now asking him, you said there are three things. Can you tell us what is the third extraordinary thing? Is the story clear so far? You understand, or am I just going on telling? Okay, thank you so much for the responses. If at any point you don't understand, please ask, because I can always tell again whatever you didn't understand. So there is no point in continuing if you don't understand. So that every time, whenever you don't understand, you just ask by switching on the mic or just typing in the chat box. I'll be happy to explain anything that you don't understand. So thank you for those responses. So the narrator had said that there are three extraordinary things. So now he has only said two, and now he is going back. He is going back home, and suddenly the listeners remember that the narrator had said only two extraordinary things. So they ask him, "What is the third extraordinary thing?" So that is why the person makes it very clear. He says, "You said three things, you know." മൂന്നെണ്ണം ഉണ്ടെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞല്ലോ. അപ്പൊ അത് എന്താണ് മൂന്നാമത്തെ സ്ട്രേഞ്ച് ആയിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യം? സോ വാട്ട് ഈസ് ദ തേർഡ് എക്സ്ട്രാordinary thing? So the narrator tells something. So that is the last paragraph. That is how the story ends. So the narrator says, I request Sri Nandana to read that. 43.
Yes, sir. Oh, the little tight things, he said as opened the door. I was forgetting that the third extraordinary thing about the story is that I made it up about half an hour ago. Good night again. Sir,
Okay, thank you. So he said, what does he say? The third thing, the third extraordinary thing about the story is that I made it up about half an hour ago. What does he mean by made it up? Made up means to make up, means to create. See, I made up the story half an hour ago means it was his own creation. Exactly. It is not an experience. എല്ലാവരെയും ഈ നറേറ്റർ പറ്റിച്ചു. ഇതൊരു സത്യമാണ്, ശരിക്കും ഉണ്ടായതാണ്, അയാളുടെ സ്വന്തം അനുഭവമാണെന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് ഇത് ഞാൻ അരമണിക്കൂർ മുമ്പ് ഉണ്ടാക്കിയ കഥയാണ് എന്ന് പറയാം. So this is how he makes a fool of all the listeners, and he also all the readers, because we also thought that this is a real story, but it turns out that it is not a real story, and it is something that is created by the narrator, and he is very intelligently narrated it so that nobody will feel any doubt. So he was very successful in fooling all the people. So that is the story of the face on the wall. So that is it for today. We will continue with the next topic in the next class. Thank you for joining. Have a nice afternoon. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
thank you, sir.
sir.
Thank
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.